Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. I am Sandy Shellis, and welcome to my partner, Jennifer Hynes and Eliot Jacobson. Hi. So I'm going to start tonight with a quick reading, and then I'm giving over the show to Jennifer and Elliot. So let's get started. There's a lot of you here, but I want to get this started. So here we go. The article was called Climate Change Trauma. You're Not Alone. And Elliot had put this up in his Twitter feed, and it gave me the idea that we should do this. So here we go. It's very short and sweet, and it should give you guys in the chat a lot of food for thought, and then that's it. So anxiety and trauma have become common effects of and everybody can hear me, right? Okay. Common effects of living and surviving in our rapidly overheating and intensely polluted globe. Scientists tell us over and over that we are well on our way to unthinkable consequences in the very near future. In fact, many people have already experienced such horrific events. If you are feeling battered by climate change, then you definitely are not alone. By Tom Hawkins. A UC San Diego team has just published a new study documenting the lingering post-traumatic stress disorder-like symptoms of climate disaster. Such trauma is more widespread than expected and can seriously disable cognitive function. Victims might not be fully aware of the impacts. You don't have to live through a disaster to become disruptively anxious about global heating and erratic extreme weather. It's very hard to ignore. Most of us are not in positions to do enough to make a major difference in the climate tragedy besetting us all. That being said, many experts tell us that the healthiest strategy is to be proactive on 5 fronts. Number 1, stay informed on the science and news reports from reliable sources so you don't get blindsided. Practice caring for Earth through gardening, yay, hiking, camping, or any beneficial activity in pristine nature. Appreciate the beauty nature still has to offer. Live as sustainably as possible. Prepare, number 3, for the worst. Stock food, water, tools, first aid, etc. Make your home as resistant as possible to fire, flooding, weather extremes, and power outages. Have a portable solar panel with rechargeable battery to run fans, coolers, and lights. Get a solar cooker. Keep large, solid blocks of ice in your freezer along with frozen food. Consider carefully how you want to behave when disaster strikes, because it will very soon. Meet regularly with equally concerned friends, relatives, and neighbors to share information from the first 4 strategies, and tell family and friends often how much you love them. So finally, lower your expectations that technology will find solutions to control warming. The record is none too good so far. So why add disappointment to the suffering we're all in for? Escape is not a realistic goal. Acceptance is. Okay? So there we go, my friends. And I am handing it over to you. There you go.
Well, Elliot, it's so good to see you again. I think this is the third time we've been together on Environmental
Yes.
Coffee House. And I understand that in California, you've had some disasters that you've had to contend with recently. Do you want to tell us all about it?
California has been, at least where I live in California, I don't know other areas. I can speak for my personal experience. This has been the most traumatic. Now it's going on 15 years. This is the 15th year anniversary of what I would just call unrelenting trauma for people in my
Mm.
community. And it started with the fire in 2008, the so called T fire, and then the Jesucita fire in 2009. That fire came within couple hundred yards of burning my house down. Um,
Wow.
everyone, yeah, everyone in our community, just we evacuated. Everybody was evacuating. The fire was out of control. We had then the Thomas fire in 2017 in December, where day after day after day for a month, we had
Mm.
exactly the same weather in November and December, which was about 10 to 15 degrees above average, 70 to 75 degrees, with a strong wind in the afternoon. And this fire started 30 miles away, and every day it marched closer and closer and closer. And finally, the zoo with all its animals was almost overrun by the fire, and it once again almost hit our house. We were only saved by the burn scars of the previous two fires. A month later, we had a torrential rain that killed 23 people in a mudslide in Montecito, which is just a few miles from here. We had a rainfall rate of 3 inches an hour, which absolutely destroyed the hillsides above Montecito. And I'm sure a lot of people remember the footage of what happened in the aftermath of that. And then just in the last month, we had yet another one of these extraordinary rainfall events where, I mean, it was more rain in a 24-hour period than they had ever recorded for our area. We had 18 inches of rain on the hill directly above my house.
Oh,
I
no.
live right at the base of the hills, and right above us, 18 inches. We had about 9 inches here, damage to my yard. But I mean, people were freaked out after the deaths in 2018 that this was, in fact, the rainfall event that happened was on January 9th, and the 23 fatalities happened on January 9th, 2018. So this was 5 years to the day. So yeah, I have personally lived through all of the anxiety and post-traumatic stress, and everything that article articulates is
Mm.
very, very real for me. I mean, even to this day, even to this very moment, it's real for me. So I mean, that's where
Wow. So you've got general PTSD from weather, right? From
I
climate insanity.
I would say that's absolutely true. That I have PTSD, and in the article they reference that paper, and the one thing. So I looked through that paper. The one part of it that is sort of the key concept that they say this is where it most affects people is this thing called interference processing, which is kind of a technical term. But what it means is that as you're trying to focus on something, other stuff comes into your consciousness that kind of interrupts you, so that you're slower to do simple cognitive testing than sort of somebody who hasn't experienced these things. So
Okay.
yeah, so essentially your long-term memory is coming in and is affecting the short-term memory. And so all of these events that have happened to me over and over again have sort of piled up. And I feel that. I honestly feel the cognitive decline in very real ways from having experienced these. I mean, just in the last couple of weeks, I've gone through this. So yeah, it's very real for me.
My goodness, that is so rough, Elliot. That is so rough. I mean, I've been through some climate catastrophes, but nothing like what you're describing. Mostly, well, I'll tell you what the thing that hit us most recently, and it's not really a classic climate catastrophe thing. It's that polar vortex and that cold spine that came down, and the weather here went from like mid 50s Fahrenheit the day before to the negative digits, like into, -7, -10 Fahrenheit. And that's like a 60-degree spread in 24 hours. And accompanying that, of course, was huge giant wind. So that's a quieter kind of catastrophe, but it's still kind of shocking when it happens because it's not just the normal winter cold. It's like this frigid Arctic blast
And
that happens.
yeah, and that's happening right now in China, right? I mean, they're in East Asia. That exact thing is happening right now, where they are having this incredible all-time record low temperatures. And that's a function of the equatorial region not heating as fast as the Arctic. So you have the Arctic
Mhm.
amplification. So you have the dip in the jet stream and these huge dips of cold reaching into the parts of the continents, and hot, and it's extraordinarily hot in other parts. Like New York has now a record for the number of consecutive days that they went without having measurable snowfall, and that's part of exactly what you experienced. But I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, what you experienced, and that swept across the whole country. You could watch that sort of
Right.
track across the country, that cold snap that you have. There's actually, in the long range GFS predictions today, that Texas is expecting a massive ice storm in the next sort of 10 days, which, again, it's the sort of dipping of the polar jet stream that can cause these sort of extreme climate events. But yeah, I mean, it's, for me, this is one of the most real places to live. I mean, as far as climate events, you live in Southern California. We had in 2016, which was supposed to be an El Nino year, right? That was where it was supposed to like rain and
Mhm.
rain and rain. And it was January, and not a drop of rain had fallen. And our local weathercaster, and I knew him personally, right, had said,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's an El Nino. We're finally going to fill up, our local reservoir again." And it's January, and it has not rained once, and our reservoir was down to 7% capacity.
Oh
Seven,
my God,
seven.
that's almost empty.
It's almost empty, right? And everything is like on a super emergency with water here because
God.
we're almost out, right? And it's El Nino, and it's not raining. So, I mean, this is the freak out is just not, these extreme events. It's also these sort of slow degrading events of our capacity to survive here. So,
Oh
yeah, it's
goodness.
not just fires and floods, it's also drought and heat. I mean, 2 years ago, I snapped a picture of my, I bought a really high quality outdoor thermometer. I snapped a picture of the thing. It was 109 degrees outside my house. I mean, 109 degrees. I live 4 miles from the ocean. It is never that. It is my cactus, my
No.
succulents
No.
were dying in my yard in the after this thing. So it's and now, I mean, you want to talk about climate change? I have tomatoes in my yard that are blooming, and I have fresh tomatoes growing, and it's January,
Mm,
right?
mm.
And I have tomatoes on my vine. I didn't have to pull the tomato plant. It's still growing and producing tomatoes, and it's freaking January.
It's insane. It's absolutely crazy. There's no
Great.
rhyme or reason to the weather seasons anymore. That's it. It's
Yeah.
all scrambled up. And of course, let's not forget to mention that while it is super, super cold down here, oftentimes the Arctic North Pole itself is, above 0 degrees. It'll be like warmer than it is down here. That's also,
Yeah. And those sorts of anomalies are continuing, and I mean, I obsess over the craziest things. I mean, I don't know who out there obsesses the way I obsess, but I wake up every morning. I'm got to tell you this. I wake up between 3 and 4 a.m. every morning. I don't know why, but that's my hours. Maybe it's just getting older. And you ask, what is the first thing Elliot does in the morning when he wakes up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., right? I go to JAXA, the site that measures the Arctic and the Antarctic ice extent. And I have a
Oh,
spreadsheet, and I plug that data into my spreadsheet, and I see what's going on. And it is terrifying and more terrifying and more terrifying we are at a record low, all-time low, ice extent for the planet, which means that the oceans are absorbing more solar radiation than they ever have. They're heating up faster than they ever have. We have more incoming solar radiation. We have less ice. So right now the Arctic ranks the third lowest all time. The Antarctic is the lowest all
mm,
time sea ice extent. So I mean, yeah, it's local, but it's also global, right? I mean, what's going on right now in New Zealand? 10 inches of rain today. If you've seen the videos, right, with the
mm.
the floods there, just I I'm sort of rambling here because I'm so overwhelmed by the sheer mass of catastrophe that's happening to this planet all at the same time.
Yeah. No, it is absolutely overwhelming. And how do you psychologically deal with it when you know everything that we know, and even your home can be threatened? I mean, how does one handle that, Elliot? How have you been handling it?
Um, yeah, I handle some of it by writing. Just the way as humans to be creative and to express themselves. To share information, to tweet, to be involved in a community. I do some of it just by I need to be out in nature. I need to be experiencing nature. I need to touch it. So, every day I go for a walk, I see things, I make a point to see, things that and see how they're coming along. And I also have to admit, I do some medicating. I honestly, it's too much for me. So I occasionally will, well, I won't say what, but I do help myself alleviate some of the anxiety. But I mean, we also have certain preparation we've done for ourselves around here. I have stockpiled. We have some food, some
Mhm.
resources that will carry us through any significant time that we are in an outage. We have some backups in our house that will carry us through. But here's the thing, like in that article, the one point that really I do not believe, and I would love to hear your feedback on this. I do not believe that I have a community here in Santa Barbara that I can just talk to my neighbors and friends about collapse.
No.
No. Right?
I don't have a community that I can talk to about collapse, not at large. Everybody's on a different page, and it really depends a lot on your political affiliation to what you believe, which is kind of crazy because facts are facts, science is science, but not to a lot of people, which is a whole nother thing, right?
Yeah,
The fall of
so
science, I mean, we can talk a little bit about that and how frustrating it is to be involved in communities where science is not really honored. It's not like considered, a fact.
how is it for you where you live? How is that experience? I live in the most liberal part of one of the most liberal states, in the
Mhm.
planet, right? So I feel a little bit insulated from the ignorance that is sort of sweeping over, the planet right now.
Yeah.
Santa Barbara is very unique in that, and so I mean, people around me actually kind of know this stuff implicitly, even though they might not talk about it explicitly. And let me tell you one small anecdote. I was out for a walk yesterday, and one of the places I walked by was our local Macy's, and they have a huge parking lot. What do you think was in that
Uh-huh.
parking lot? A bunch of preppers. and they had a one a large 18 wheeler had just delivered their loads of prepper supplies, and they had a pop up tent, and they were all um, making piles of supplies and all the different preppers, big old boxes of peanut butter patties and
Wow.
so at least I know now we have a community, and I don't know who these people are. We have a community of survivalists around here, even. So, I mean, it's not, we are at the peak of the liberal end politically, but apparently we are also at the peak of the survivalist end. Um, that's where I live, and I know you live in a very different place than that. Well, you're in where are you anyway?
Well, I'm in Boulder, and Boulder, I would say, is a little enclave of liberalism. It's very liberal right around here, but then, of course, you've got Colorado Springs, and that's very, you know, Christian and right wing and Republican. So it really just depends where you go in Colorado. But Colorado's gotten, when I first moved here, it was pretty red. It was a red state back in '95 when I moved here. And now, so many years later, it's beyond purple. I would say it's becoming a light blue state. So the Democratic makeup has really shifted over the years.
So how has that affected you and your sort of experience of community where you live with respect to collapse? I mean, do you feel like you have any community at all where you live with
Well,
these
I've
issues?
got I've got choice people that I can work with, hang with, be with, but I would say my community ground roots it's not very developed actually. So that's
Yeah.
probably more my own fault. But there were a few people, but the thing is you can have contacts for a while and then you just kind of like lose them. So I kind of feel like I'm starting over.
So, I mean, locally, I have people who sort of will tell me that they've read my stuff, or they've, you know, agree with me, but that's sort of the end of the conversation. They don't want to go on from there. It's not like for me, this is a daily nonstop awareness. Collapse is a
I know.
24/7 experience for me. And it's happening locally enough that I can't believe that like everybody isn't on board with that.
Right.
I mean, we have gone through so many disasters here in Santa Barbara. Um, so, I have people who will talk to me sort of tangentially about it, and then they don't want to talk about it anymore. Um, I am really lucky to be married to someone who will actually read the things I say. You should read this, and not tell me that I'm wrong. She'll, you know, agree, like yes, I agree. We should have a solar cooker. Why don't you go and get us one? So that's kind of awesome. But um, I don't have a community outside of Twitter or YouTube, or us doing this video, or Mastodon, or whatever the thing is. I don't have a community of people who understand where we are in collapse. And I
Hmm.
mean, that's kind of sad, isn't it, that we don't, like, that step in that article where you were like, talk to your friends and neighbors, talk to your friends and neighbors. You're like, are you kidding me? Talk to your,
I
what, are you kidding me?
I think our lives are a lot different than previous generations, right? I mean, our lives have become like our support system has become virtual. Like right here, right now, the 87 people that are on this show right now, that's a virtual support system and that's real. And a lot of those friendships for me actually have translated into people I can call up. Now, whether they're physical in front of my face, I can see them, I can touch them, it doesn't really seem to matter so much. It's really more to have the mental and emotional support you can have from somebody who's on the same page. Because what makes you more lonely, I think, and it's kind of like maybe if you're in a bad relationship or something, if you, whoever you're talking to doesn't see your point and doesn't really understand, or worse, scoffs at it and kind of puts you down for it, that is actually a much, much worse feeling. So, we're kind of, all birds of a feather. We're all attracted here to talk about these things here because we're all on the same page. And I think that's really valuable to be able to hook up mentally with people.
So, Jennifer, I'm losing you. I don't know whether there is a problem with the connections or something, but you have
Oh, really?
frozen for me. Maybe I have frozen for you too. I
Oh,
don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's Sandy. Maybe it's Sandy's fault. Sandy, do a flush on that last 20 seconds of this thing, okay? Give us a flush on that. Oh, look, Sandy's talking. I can't
you're,
even hear her.
she is, but she's muted. There
Thank
she
you,
goes.
Sandy.
It happens. This is live.
Yeah, I
End of
know what
story.
happens.
All right. Go back.
Thank you. Nice of you to show up out of the wherever you're hanging out there. You like drop in and do something and then disappear on us again.
Bye bye.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this
So,
is
Elliot, do you
yes.
feel, yes, please, sorry.
No, I was just going to say this is so profoundly hard, and I can only imagine what other people are going through around the world. I mean, even though Southern California, and especially where I live, has been like the focal point of disasters now for 15 years. Um, we're entitled, we're well off, we're able to get through it, but you think about all the people experiencing these things around the world and how that's impacting them. And it is so painful and so hard to imagine what people have already experienced and what's coming.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, since I got involved with the online communities, it must have been like by 9 years ago now. I feel a lot less alone, Elliot. I feel a great deal of support because you can reach out and talk to somebody on the phone or whatever, have a video call with them or whatever. And because you're on the same page and share the same understanding, it does help you to not feel alone. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I was surprised, as anyone. I mean, I'm just a guy, right? I don't. Yeah, I have a degree, right? I have a degree in math, and I was a professor and all that sort of stuff. So I started tweeting, right? I just tweeting what I think, right? Well, lots of people are tweeting what they think. It's not like I'm tweeting stuff that's substantially different than other people, right? But it's sort of like people resonate when you tell them these things, and they see somebody with academic credentials saying these things. It's sort of a way to comfort yourself that and I realize that even though I'm saying the same things that a lot of other people say, the fact that I have these letters after my name somehow adds comfort to people, and I'm grateful for that, right? I'm grateful that I'm able to say these things and feel like I'm contributing to other people thinking that what they're experiencing and what they think is not abnormal. It's not, they are not wrong for knowing these things. They're not, an outcast or somehow strange or to be thought like you're not worthy of respect because you have, they see somebody with these credentials saying these things and then they're like, okay, I'm okay. It's reasonable. What I think is not, completely loony, right? I mean, that's my experience of this, and that's been profoundly um, heartening for me to know that I can just reach people just by virtue of having a comma PhD. Nothing really, nothing more than that, right? So
I saw a comment from Kim Centro, one of our fine people here, and she says, I haven't met most of you, but I consider most of you my best friends, or something like that. And it's true, it's an electronic tribe. And, by the virtue of the internet, we've found our electronic tribe.
And as Poppy said, until the grid goes down.
yeah,
That's right.
right,
So, of
right,
course,
That's
right.
going
I
to
Yeah,
had
cause
to add that.
PTSD.
Oh,
That's
hell
going to
yeah.
cause.
Then I'm really just with my Amish neighbors.
well, at least you have a farm out in the middle of nowhere with Amish neighbors. I mean, I
Yeah,
live in a city, right? So collapse will be very different here than where it is where you are, Sandy.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose.
So, at
Are
any
we
rate,
ready for
yeah,
questions?
yeah. Does anybody have any comments or anything? I mean, I'm glad to answer any questions that people put up in the chat. I always feel like it's an ask me anything whenever I'm on live.
And
So
both of you.
ask
All
me
right.
anything. It's always
Well,
my
there's
perspective on.
plenty of them. And but they're comments and questions, and then maybe I'll put them up, and then you guys could talk about it. All right. So first of all, Heidi, what kind of collapse are you discussing?
Jennifer, you want to take this one?
Well, I'm discussing the dissolution of life as we know it, the dissolution of our biosphere, the breakdown of climate, the sixth grade extinction, the collapse of civilization, the collapse of everything we
Oh,
hold dear.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The earth roasting in a frying pan. That's kind of the kind of collapse I'm talking about.
I'm not sure I could add anything to that. That was brilliant. That was a brilliant synopsis of collapse. Yeah, I
Can't help
Mm.
myself.
100%
All of
on
it is
every last
is
bit of
too
that.
hard. It's too much to hold. It's too much to hold in your poor head. So you have to get a break from this, right? You can't hold on to it all the time, right? I mean, how do you hold constantly that understanding of collapse in your conscious awareness and keep your mind together?
Yeah, well, it's sort of like your reality is constantly fracturing, right? You think you know something, and then that thing is not true anymore. I mean, for me personally, I find ways to distract myself. I get involved with what I consider meaningful volunteerism, ways to do what I can while I'm still here, right? And that volunteerism for me personally is Planned Parenthood in our local chapter. So I'm involved with volunteering, but I, aside from that, every moment that's not X is collapse, right? I mean, it's always comes back to that as the fundamental thing that we're going through together.
Yeah.
We as a human family are going through this thing, and it's has all of the dynamics of family, like the deniers and the people who just want to pick a fight, and the people who are depressed or some or want to act out at the Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, we have all of those characters, that sort of come into our lives. Um, so it's
All
it's hard
right.
it's hard to stay focused too.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. The next one will go to, I'm going to ask this. Elliot, are you thinking of moving?
People have kind of asked that in the question of like when are you going to W2TF, when are you going to get the hell out of there? and and well, where should I go? Well, why don't you get a nice little piece of property in upstate New York, they will say.
Yeah, by us, by what we're building here between Ithaca and, my end of the Route 86. And I've
I
got
mean,
people coming to stay this summer. I mean, it's actually happening.
so
And it's very beautiful.
I will acknowledge that collapse is not going to occur uniformly, you know, in intensity or duration or frequency in all parts of the planet. That there will be certain places that are affected earlier and in a more challenging way than others.
Hmm.
So where I am in Santa Barbara is probably going to become inhospitable much earlier than where you are in upstate New York. I'm not sure about Boulder,
Western New York. You have to
Western
qualify
by
that.
Buffalo somewhere.
Yeah,
Um,
below. Yeah.
I'm not sure about Colorado. You have some issues there with water and fire.
Water, water,
You know,
and fire for sure. But, Colorado, paradise on earth, just add water. It's a desiccated land.
is
It's,
that what they say? Paradise on Earth, just add water.
I
What is
say that. I say it. Paradise on earth, Colorado, paradise on earth, just add water. That's my comment about Colorado. It's a great place to live, but there's not enough water.
there?
Jennifer likes the kitties.
I like the kitty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when am I going to move? I mean, I have to tell you, it's really hard to move from your family and your community, and I feel really integrated into this place.
So then you stay.
And if it just comes down to me surviving another year or two, I would say that Santa Barbara is especially well positioned because we have a lot of billionaires who live around here, from Oprah and Ellen and everyone else,
Yes. Well, you
um,
have Prince Harry too, don't you?
say what?
Prince Harry. You have
Oh
Prince
yes, we have
Harry
Harry and Meghan. In
and Harry
fact,
and
Oh
Meghan.
my God, I'll drink to
they
that.
They're all
they are
set.
moving from Montecito, which is about 3 miles south of me, to Hope Ranch, which is about 2 miles
Hope.
north of me,
Oh boy.
because they want to be under the airport no fly zone so that people cannot, the media can't fly drones over their house anymore, snapping
Mhm.
pictures of them. So they're moving even closer to me over the next couple months. So yeah, I mean, we
Very
we have an incredibly rich community, and I'm not rich, but fortunately, all these rich people are pumping money into our infrastructure because they want to stay here. So we have a desalination plant here. So as long as we have electricity, we have water, which is not the same as Los Angeles or San Diego or Riverside or Phoenix or Tucson or parts of New Mexico. That when the I mean, as the Lake Mead and Lake Powell empty and go, below Deadpool, there's going to be huge multi-million person migrations out of Southern California, and it is going to be the most, I mean, where do you put 12 million people from Los Angeles? Where do you
Not
put them
here.
on the water? Well, they might. You don't know, Sandy.
Yeah, I think they are. I think people are buying up the land, actually. The unscrupulous, greedy realtors around here are selling
I,
properties and breaking them up.
I mean, people know, right? I mean, at a very deep level, people know what's coming and they've got the money. They're going to go there. They're going to say, where can I go? And so, yeah, you are going to have these mass migrations from SoCal happening over the next few years as the water, and we're already seeing that. Wasn't there just a community outside of Phoenix where they just completely shut off the water in the last couple of weeks or so? It's
Oh, really?
yeah, sorry, we're not giving you any more water. Sorry,
Oh my
you're done,
God.
right? So
Yeah.
this is very real, and we just happen to be. I mean, I just happen to live in a community of billionaires. So what can I tell
Oh
you?
my God.
Lucky you.
Lucky, lucky me.
Well, I can certainly unequivocally say I do not. Okay, let's move on. Jennifer, I'm going to give this one to you, Janet Gray. I can't even get a ride to the co op, no less talk about the issue, and no goal towards cohesive, positive interaction towards sustainable growth. So, what would you say? Is it similar for you? Do you feel what Janet feels?
Well, I feel that it's harder to get a group of people in the physical together that are on the same page, and it's everybody's going to be in their separate place no matter
Yeah.
what the weather is that they see, and that's going to be a slow thing to turn. But I keep going back to try and find your electronic tribe and then convert some of those electronic tribe friendships and see if you can, make any of them into real friendships.
And
Case in
we
point,
have
Sandy.
Sam's party.
Right. I mean, you and I, we look, we met each other here. Me and Sam, we met each other here. And then these turn into real friendships, and you can call each other on the weekend and commiserate. And,
Yep.
you don't have to be in the same area, that's
And
for
you
sure.
don't always have to fly. I mean, I had to fly on this recent trip because my mom is 88, you know, and you and I, we did it, Jennifer, but we have this. We're together every week, we have it. And community is so important, everyone.
It
It
is.
really
It
is.
is.
All right, let's see here. There's a lot of. All right, Elliot, did you say Texas is getting another Uber freeze? Poppy moved away from there, so she's interested. Party wants to know.
So, hi, Poppy Davis. So, what I just read this morning is not an Uber freeze, but a layer of ice. They're supposed to have a massive ice storm
Jesus.
coming through there. So, this is sort of a long range forecast. And in the winter, things can go one way or another, and nothing is set. But yeah, they're supposed to have sort of a record breaking ice storm, which is different than an Uber freeze.
Ooh.
In ice storms, essentially what you have is trees collapsing and power lines
Hmm.
collapsing. And, oh, do you know about this, Sandy? You know about ice storms where you are?
Yes, and tornadoes, believe it or not. Yeah, we
So,
have everything. Yep.
so yeah. So Texas right now, there is a weather forecast for Texas that is none too kind. So
All
enjoy
right.
your ERCOT while you still can.
Yeah. Well, she's not there anymore anyway. Okay, let's see, let's see, let's see. All right. Trish Kaiser. Debbie Downer, keep your collapse to yourself.
Now, I'd just like to call out Trish Kaiser because she's another one of these electronic tribe people that is, for me, converted into a real friendship. And I'm
Yep.
so grateful. And yeah, Debbie Downer. Well, we're all kind of Debbie Downers here. I mean, that's our nature. That we
Yeah.
revel in collapse and we roll around in it.
Well, I mean, Elliot, Jennifer, both of us, I mean, we all feel like we're watching something from a different vantage point, maybe than other people are. And it's not a cult, and I've been examining all of this, and it's what is for dinner. You know? Yeah.
The Debbie Downer, by the way, is a reference to what, Saturday Night Live,
Yeah.
circa
Debbie Downer.
1995
Mm-hmm.
or so. But I mean, that is a real problem um,
People
when
think
it
we
comes to
are.
talking about this stuff. I mean, people want you to say that you have hope, right? I was just had a phone call with someone today, and I was talking about hope, and they were saying, "No, no, no, there's hope." It's like, well, what do you mean by hope, right? I mean, we can hope that some football team wins a football game, but if you're talking about there being hope that civilization doesn't collapse, it's like, sorry, that's like, no, no, those are different things. Those are
Yeah.
different. So I think the Debbie Downer thing is like, I want to just say that it this whole feeling that we are going through end times together, and we can acknowledge that with each other, is a really profoundly deep place to be with someone, right? It is a place that you rarely get to say, hey, you and I, we know we are at the end of civilization. And this is, the last 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, 20 years. But this is profound. This is deeper than any other time in human history at this moment. And I don't want to call that Debbie Downer. I don't want to belittle it with Debbie Downer. This is unreal. I mean, I cannot fathom that I happen to have been born at this moment in the history of the planet when essentially everything is collapsing. I mean,
Quite prolific. Holy
Yeah.
crap. Hi, Sarah. It's okay that you're late. You can rewind after it's over. I just wanted to shout her out. She's from Twitter also, and she's got a Twitter feed. She does Doomer Girl News. So on
I know
Twitter,
you. Oh,
Yeah.
I love this feed. Okay, I know this
I'm
person.
pretty sure that's
Definitely
Sarah.
one of my
and
favorite.
Yeah, and she's a sweetheart, and I'm sharing her stuff in Twitter. And because, I can only do so much. And I've got Environmental Coffee House. We've got that on Facebook and populating that. So, all right, let's see what else. Okay. Elliot, none of your billionaires have a gravity engine, Elliot. You need to think of a better way. Plan. You can do it.
What is a gravity engine? I think there's some sci-fi reference there that I don't know.
Well, Channel Horse does have something that's interesting. Channel War Horse, and he does talk about it in the comments. So I mean, we do have a Discord server. If anybody actually really wants to try that and make different talking points that we find in our chat, and then use this Discord server if you want to. I'm just giving you a way to communicate so we can learn about each other, besides Facebook. Okay, Elliot, did you have a good response for the interview on Soft White Underbelly? Since you are the star of Soft White Underbelly here,
I haven't even looked at that interview since the day I did it. It is sort of a funny thing. Like my wife sort of read every comment that ever was on that interview, and she would tell me about them and why did you do this and not that, or they're saying this. And it's like honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I am not here to get hits or likes or followers or any of those things. And anytime this stuff happens, it's like, okay, there you go. But for me, I think what was really meaningful was to know that this person who had millions of followers or millions, of people potentially viewing the videos, that this message could get out, that this thing is real, that, there are people who are talking about this and thinking about this. And I have gotten many, so yes, I've gotten many personal emails. I've gotten Twitter followers. I've gotten replies to my own videos with people who have said, I found you on Soft White Underbelly, and I'm so thankful for that. Well, usually they say, I found you and Sam, right?
And Sam. Oh, my God.
Sam,
the package
right?
deal. It was
Package
a package
deal
deal.
on Soft White
I'm telling you.
Underbelly.
Oh, my
so
God.
glad to have found you. Finally, people who are thinking what I think. So, I think in that context, there's a very positive reaction. The only really negative thing I got from anything I said on the entire show was calling Elon Musk a fascist. People really genuinely out there.
They didn't like it, Elliot. No, they didn't like it. I find that that channel has a wide variety of.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone, Jennifer, everyone.
Oh, really?
I had never heard of it actually, and the interest is I don't want to go down out there to be the doomer chick. I'm not doing it. I can't do it, Elliot. God, I had a hard enough time going to Florida. I don't want to fly. It's all that so much shit. I have like a whole life here. That dude has to come to me. He does come to New York.
Yeah.
That's what Sam said, but I don't know. It's not about me. Okay, let's see here. Let's move on. Which would be better, L1 dimming or supervolcano dimming? John leans L1.
Could you explain that to me? I seem to be missing some
Okay,
scientific lingo
I
here.
think he's meaning the dimming. Which kind of dimming? Like a volcano that goes off? Jennifer, what do you think? A volcano that goes off, or the kind of dimming that's aerosol masking, the dimming that comes from air travel and all of the crap we've put in?
Oh,
Well,
no.
all of it is temporary, right? I mean, the thing
Yeah.
is, anything you put up into the atmosphere is going to fall out, unless it's carbon dioxide in a gas, in which case you have to wait until it rinses into the oceans or something like that. But if we had a huge, giant super volcano like Yellowstone go off, we wouldn't have to
That could
worry about
help.
anything. You know, it would be game over, and we could all rest easy at that point.
Yeah, I mean, if Yellowstone blew, right, then at least we know it would be cool for a while, right? We would
It
Yeah.
would be.
I mean, the sulfuric acid and the hot coals causing massive wildfires pretty much over the
Oh,
entire
that's
northern
lovely.
hemisphere,
Yeah.
but at least it would cool off for a while, right? Because of all the sulfur, yeah.
A
Scott
little
never
bit.
Um,
heard of L1 either, so I don't feel so bad.
well,
And I think, what is this L1? Okay, Nadia says I think it's meant to be a Lagrange point between the Earth and the Sun. So we're getting into a little bit of
so
uncharted territory.
that's a gravitationally neutral point where essentially you have the same gravitational force drawing you to Earth as drawing to the sun, so you can place something at that location. And so the idea of that is to put a giant solar sunscreen at an L1 point. In other words, there are these projects proposed where you create a
Bubbles.
reflective surface the size of, let's say, Minnesota, and in a series of rockets that blast out to the L1 point, and they unfold, and that blocks enough incoming solar radiation to cool us down, so we don't have to worry about all the crap we're putting into the atmosphere. So I
Hmm.
think that's the intention of saying what they mean by L1 there. If I Thank you for talking about the Lagrange point. That brought back all of that sciencey stuff in a moment
Yeah,
there.
and actually I heard the other day, Jennifer, you'll like this one.
Hmm.
It's bubbles, putting bubbles up there to create a block in between the sun and the planet somewhere up there. I can't tell you mathematically how high or any of that, but it was interesting, Jen. I thought, well, if we did that,
Yeah.
it would have been part of our show. But Elliot is part of our show. All right, let's see here. Uh oh boy, we're getting towards an hour. All right. Hi, Jeffrey. We can only afford about one mass extinction event per 100 million years. Humans being around only about 100,000 years. The rate of human caused mass extinction events is about 1,000 times too high. Do you get it? Humans being around only 100,000 years. So the rate of human caused mass extinction events is about 1,000 times too high. We haven't seen, how many have we seen?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of a sequence of mass extinction events, right? Where this is the sixth great mass extinction event we're in right now. But I don't know about this every 100,000 years thing. I mean, and what it means to afford a mass extinction. I mean, how do
Well,
you
we
afford a
can't.
mass extinction?
Well, we
Um,
can't. Jeffrey's new with us, and it's nice because we like to bring in new people and get to understand them in our community too. So thanks, Jeffrey. Thank you, sweetheart. All right.
I'll just say that for a second. I mean,
Yeah.
in the last 500 million years, right? We can look over 500, maybe
Right.
550 million years.
Right.
The only time when the climate has changed faster, there's only been one time in 550 million years that the climate has changed faster than is now, right? And that was when this huge asteroid
Oh,
essentially.
you're talking about the dinosaurs
The
and
dinosaurs, right?
that
63
mass
million years ago,
extinction,
right?
yeah.
That's it.
Right. Well, that changed overnight, just like shoom,
Boom.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, so that was faster, right? But
Yeah, it
every
was
other
fun.
mass extinction has been over a period of like 10,000 years, where volcanoes gradually pump CO2, right, into the atmosphere, or algae gradually, removed oxygen from the atmosphere, whatever the cause was. It was over periods of thousands of years. We've never had an instance on the planet where things have changed as fast as they are that wasn't caused by some sort of external thing hitting, which is
Hmm.
why Don't Look Up was an appropriate metaphor.
Yeah, it
Well,
was
as he
great.
said, one time during, one during the time of human existence, and it will be a doozy. It'll be a dooz, and I
um,
won't be around to see it. I hurt too much. I ain't sticking around
I'm
here.
sorry.
Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds. No, 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 no. I'm not. That was my comedy act. Ha ha ha. All right, let's see here. We've got We've got quite a few. Hi, Valdi. Weirder passes with us from Facebook. He wants to agree. I know. I agree. If you're still with us, you still with us? I hope so. Knowing about the risk of collapse is super depressing and occasionally makes me cry. Using active distraction by volunteering to work on positive environmental activism, especially climate activism, helps to distract from the agony of creepy worry. Creeping worry. I love that because I've
Hmm.
been that person to do so much of that volunteer work, but I can't do what I used to do. This is about what I can do. But this is what answering to Elliot and Jennifer.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, well, it's all happening right now, and it is kind of an odd kind of honor to be around and alive right now and be aware and be in the position where you can find your electronic tribe, you know. And, I think that this knowledge is so profound, you can't really bear it alone. And just part of you really needs to reach out and talk about it with somebody, which is why shows like this are on the air.
Yes. High giant curve. AI is going to save us. Elliot, you're a very facial
Oh,
expression guy.
yeah. I have to tell you, I studied poker. I have a
Yeah.
history in the gambling industry, right? The casino
Yeah.
industry. I mean, for 15 years, it was my primary source of income. And I was a really outstanding internet poker player. I could play poker on the internet, absolutely great. You put me in an actual poker game at a table, and they clean me out every time. And the reasons is this face, right? I could not. Oh, I got aces. Oh, wow. Oh, no, be serious. Be serious. Okay, aces. Pretend you don't have aces.
Oh,
So
God.
you wear it like a
I
picture.
do. I,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I,
very
Sometimes,
I,
transparent.
I think sometimes we wear certain things. I know when there's anxiety coming for weather events, for every one of my friends, wherever, because I watch it all, I get that. You can see my face. It's in my face. And Jennifer, I'm pretty good at reading you too. See, that's what
Yeah.
online community is. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Boy, we're at 58 minutes, so let's take a couple more. Um, Obsolete optics high. What's the difference between a prepper and a doomer? Preppers think collapse is survivable. Doomers know it's not. Well,
Can you be a prepper and a doomer at the same time?
yeah, sure,
I
of course.
am. That's
Oh,
why I have all this canned shit
I've
growing in me.
prepped and I'm
Yeah.
doomed.
Oh, jeez.
So I think the idea of a prepper, there's this whole sort of idea that all these other things, not climate change, are going to be the cause of the end of civilization, whether it's some coronal mass ejection or super volcano or some, civil war or whatever it is. So I think preppers tend towards these other causal agents that, doomers don't. And so preppers, for example, might be more inclined towards firearms than doomers would
Hmm.
be, I would say,
Probably,
or
yeah, I would
towards
say so.
bunkers and those sorts of things. I think doomers in general acknowledge that there's no hope. And all you can really expect is maybe to buy a little extra time wherever you happen to be. And so they're not really invested in defending their turf till the bitter end the way maybe a prepper is. So maybe that's a distinction. I'm not sure that's really clear or not, but that would be a
I
possible
would
distinction.
agree with you. I would totally agree with you, Elliot. And preppers, they think of prepping, against, civilizational unrest or, whatever happens. And I can never really quite relate to like digging a hole in the backyard and, making this whole thing, but a lot of people do that, and, more power to them. But
Hey,
it's
I'm one
not
of
really
those.
where I'm at,
I don't
I
have a
guess.
hole in my backyard, but I mean, I have an outhouse. I guess I could duck and cover.
Be careful. You might end up in the
Exactly.
hole.
Throwing shit at people.
Oh,
That might
God.
be a good deterrent.
Hmm.
All right, that's Mad Max stuff. Okay, let's I wasn't even supposed to be in this show. Okay, favorites. Okay. How did Elliot's friendships and family were they affected by his deep knowledge of collapse? Hi, Brian.
Brian, that's a question that's. I would say that things are still evolving in that particular question. My family, my parents have passed away. My kids, it's an interesting thing. I have one son who works essentially for Elon Musk doing solar installs, Tesla battery installs. And another son is actually at the state level in California working on policy that impacts solar installs, in terms of sort of the regulatory part of that. So they are both really, really invested in sort of surviving the apocalypse through, technology, through this
Hmm.
stuff, and they both have young kids, right? So I understand that.
Well, yeah.
And sort of behind the scenes, and you talk to them, and it's off the record, and they both know about collapse. They both completely understand that that's where it's going. But they are in industries whose profit is based on the assumption that what they are doing will prolong civilization or lead to a change, that will allow civilization to continue its growth. So it's complicated. I would say that I have so much respect for my kids for, number one, doing what they're doing, which is actually being involved in what they perceive as a solution, right? And number two, also knowing the truth and being
Oh,
able to
wow.
talk to me quite personally about that, right?
Right.
My ex-wife, 25 years ago, lives off grid, has
Oh, wow.
solar Tesla install, completely isolated. So if my
I like
kids
that.
need a place to run to in the extent of collapse, she has said, "Oh, you could always come home to to Mama here in Ohio." So I
There's
have
something to
I
be said.
what,
There's
please?
something to be said of that.
Yeah,
I
you
always
know.
tell Jennifer she has to get out of Colorado. She could come here.
Yeah, so my kids have a place to run. I'm not sure my ex-wife would want me there though. Um, and my sister and I have done a couple of shows together about collapse, and I know she's a
Oh,
patron of
yeah.
San Mitchell, so
Oh,
she's on
okay.
board with that. So I happen to be in a very fortunate position with my family with
Yeah.
this, but I among my friends, there's a consensus, even though they don't want to hear me talk about this. They will never deny or tell me I'm wrong about this stuff. So I think I'm lucky in that regard. I mean, Jennifer, how about you? I mean, what is your local situation with your friends and family?
Well, fortunately, I have a very good friend that lives with me, and we've kind of formed a little unit. My dad is very supportive of all the work that I do, and I'm really grateful for that. My sister knows about Collapse, but when I went to her wedding 5 years ago, I was not allowed to speak. It's like, you will be quiet, you will not say anything here,
And
and
that,
we are not going to talk about it. It's not going to be a topic of conversation. So even though they know about it, um, and they live at sea level, and it's a place called a basin. So a basin by its very nature fills with water. So, I would say I'm very fortunate in my social contacts that most people I socialize with understand completely the situation that we're in. And that helps because if your closest people to you don't really understand what's closest to your heart, that can make it very difficult, right? Like if you're married to somebody who doesn't believe in climate change and thinks it's all a load of crap, that can be very, very isolating. And I'm very fortunate that I'm not in that situation.
right. And I think that this is we're lucky. You and I are lucky to be in this situation. I mean, so many people I run across on Twitter or through the various communities I'm involved with are not in our situation. Their closest, the person they're married to, their family, they're just
Hmm.
they're shunned at every level. And I think that's part of the trauma that people are experiencing right now is this sort of I don't believe you or you're wrong or shut upness,
Hmm.
And you said at the wedding, about like shut up, don't say anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I
you will not talk about it. I was taken aside and instructed,
constructed,
what
right?
what was
So
proper conversation and what was not. So,
so I mean I think that's traumatic, to be told to shut up is a traumatic experience. And I experience that all the time on Twitter. I mean, one of the insta blocks I do on Twitter is when anybody, I mean, even if they hint at me like you shouldn't talk about this. Like, what's the value in talking about this? Like why would you say these things, right? It's like, well,
mhm.
block that person. Nobody's going to tell me to shut up. Nobody's going to tell me what I am allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say. And I think that's really hard because you want to also be respectful of the people you're around at the same time. And you're at a wedding or you're with friends and you don't want to bring this stuff up. On the other hand, it's the only thing you want to bring up, right?
I
It's the
know.
only thing, right? So
Yeah.
we're at this point in reality where simultaneously the only thing you want to talk about is the thing they don't want you to talk about, right?
I know, I know. But I have to say that shows like Environmental Coffee House has given me a lot of mental relief because at least I have a place to talk about it. And everybody who comes to this show is on the same page and understands, because we're all scholars of climate change, abrupt climate change. And that's given me a lot of relief. And I used to feel like I had to talk about this whenever I met anybody who was even remotely receptive. I'd be like, blah 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 blah, and it's actually taken that cork off, and so I don't feel this pressure built up inside anymore because I can talk about it here, and that fills the need for me.
Right. And I mean, for me, it's my Twitter and my blog and just the other outlets I have that are like that. But I think you and I are lucky in that respect, and we have to acknowledge that there aren't 6 million YouTube channels or 6 million blogs. Or 6 million Twitter. But there are 6 million people in this country who know this stuff is happening, and
Hmm.
so it's a very small group. Still it's one in 100 or 1 in 50. That are know this stuff is true, but they don't feel comfortable talking about it. And so I let me just give you a small example. So one of the things I've done in my post retirement is I have been in some operas. And one of the people in our dressing room is this kid. He's 23 years old. And so I bring up climate change to this kid. And I said, have you thought
Mm.
about climate change? I was just trying to create conversation about whatever it ended up being. I said, do you ever talk about this with your friends? Do you ever talk about climate change and what's happening? And what he said to me was, this is the only thing I ever think about. This is the
Mhm.
only thing I talk about with my friends. This is it. This is the main thing I think about. And we're disconnected from that. But kids these days, they know this stuff is happening. The
I
17,
think so.
20, 25 year olds, they are so freaked out by this. They are so
Yeah.
profoundly freaked out. And just reaching out to them and saying, yeah, I know is a really big deal for them. And I couldn't believe it when that's what he said to me. So
All
Wow.
right.
Profound.
It's all profound. I have a kid too, and she just says, "I'm not having any kids, and I'm not getting married. That's it. I'm living life." Okay. We're gonna end soon because but we have a few questions. Here's a real good one. Will Elliot create a poll for how long Michael Mann et al. Will hold out on the opium?
well, it's not a poll. What I need is a fake bet, right? Because that's what I do. I create these fake wagers, right? No, no. Michael Mann is going to hold out until the bitter
Oh,
end,
shit.
right? He's going to hold out and hold out because he has built his worldview about denying what's coming. So yeah, no, I won't create that poll, and I also don't want to attack anyone individually through a
No,
poll.
that was pretty
But
comical.
I love the idea. I love the thought
That was
behind it. That
comical.
the buffoonery of what he does. And there are other people like them. There's this guy Mark Jacobson, right, who just had an article in the Guardian, which was like hopium from the beginning to the end about how solar and wind are going to save us. And people were like confusing me for Mark Jacobson and sending me email like, is this you? How could you think these things? This is
Oh
no,
shit.
this will never happen. So
Yeah, but
Hmm.
on the other end of the coin, like, where's this guy? Giant Curve, who I think used to be Sat One. I don't know. I'm not going to insult this person. Okay, here we go. There is potential for destructive rage if people think doom is real and not necessarily the good kind.
Mhm.
You mean the
so that
Mad Max kind?
So that's the blue pill, red pill argument, right? That's the Plato cave argument that people are better off not knowing that you should provide opium to the people, right? You should like deception is better than knowledge. I just totally reject that. I honestly I don't think there's anything better than facts and knowledge and information. And I've lived my life, you know, as a scientist based on that. So
Okay.
while I agree with it, there might be some civil unrest. That is one of the consequences of climate change that's to be expected. So
Mhm.
that is definitely in our future.
All right, how about this one, guys? We'll get a little more science put in. I had it. Shit. Where did it go?
Science.
Here it is. Here it is. Why
Uh-oh.
don't we hear much about the polar vortex moving to Greenland and its effects?
Well,
Jen- Jennifer, say something while I drink on this one.
oh, okay. Well, I mean, once the polar ice melts, once there's no more Arctic sea ice, the only measurable body of cold in the Arctic is going to be Greenland. And that is really where the air will start to swirl, not around the Arctic itself, I think. And you weigh in, Elliot, and let me know what you think. But if there's a big cold mass in Greenland, won't it really swirl around there? And won't that be kind of the center of the whole polar vortex?
Yeah, I think Paul Beckwith made that point, right? I mean, it's absolutely true that as the Arctic melts, the center of cold will be Greenland, and when you talk about about what that means. It's just a complete disruption of all of the climate, northern hemisphere climate cycles. So, I mean, beyond that, it's part of our future. Now, the whole idea though that the Arctic is somehow going to go ice free, and I mean, 2016 or 2019 or 2022. There's these really weird feedback loops that have recently been documented about the Arctic that kind of push the time frame for an ice-free Arctic, forward till 2030, 2035. And, I have a 50-50 over under bet on the year 2030 for the first sort of ice free Arctic year. Whenever that comes, it's going to be absolute mayhem and chaos, entire northern hemisphere. And yes, Greenland will be the focus of that as far as the polar vortex goes, which means we'll have, ice, we'll have unbelievable freezing events happening in parts of the planet that have never experienced that before, and unreal heating other parts of the northern hemisphere. I Next 10 to 15 years, it's 100% that's going to happen. So yeah, no, I completely, you're exactly right, Jennifer.
This is interesting from John Schmidt. How do you feel the average surface temperature will get? How hot do you feel the average surface temperature will get before leveling off? Do you have any opinion about that?
I want to hear yours on that. I mean,
Oh,
the question is when. I mean, when is leveling off, right?
I don't know
When?
if it's going to level off. That's the thing. I don't know. I think
So,
we might get plus 10C.
so
I
you
know
know,
that
I
sounds like a lot.
I personally have an over under of 1.5 by 2026. I think I have 2.0 by 2035. RCP 4.5, now even Bill Gates is saying, we're not going to level off before 2.5. Hansen and all those people are saying 6. I mean, we're going to be dead long before any of this stuff happens, these leveling offs. If we get to 2, I mean, it's absolute lights out for the planet, right? I mean, life everywhere on the planet, forget it. It's lights out. So it's sort of an academic question in some sense. It doesn't matter a lot because life will not survive to those points, to those extremes. Um, whether it gets to 10 or not, I couldn't say, but certainly we're going to blow right past 2, probably blow past 2.5 in the next 30 years or so, and that's going to. I can't believe what that means. I mean, if you understand what the implied disasters planet-wide are to 2.0 C in terms of storms and floods and fires and droughts and everything else, hurricanes, it's just so beyond anything that humanity in its 200,000 civilized years has ever experienced. It's unsurvivable for most parts of the planet. So 10C, sure. 6C, sure. We'll all be waving goodbye at 2.5 for sure.
Oh,
Oh,
Elliot, that sounds really grim.
God.
But
Oh,
that's Jennifer, that's
I do.
true, right? That's our future, right? That's
It
100%
is.
our
I mean,
future.
we're just living, we're actually already fallen off the cliff. It's not a matter of let's stop the tipping point. We're sort of in free fall, but the point between free fall and us hitting smack, at the bottom, who knows how
Exactly.
it's going to happen. But
oh,
yeah.
everybody. There's a lot of questions, but guys, it's been a wonderful show. I think we're gonna wrap it up. I have a problem sitting for too long, man.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So,
Yeah, but I want to thank everybody and for coming. Jennifer, why don't you take it away? And there we go.
Well, guys, I mean, like I usually say, we live in such a profound time, and I think we're really, really fortunate to be awake enough and engaged enough and, wanting to get to our electronic tribe, which I'm going to say is right here, right now. There's a great comfort
Yahoo!
in it, So I'm just really grateful for the community at Environmental Coffee House, and Elliot, so grateful for you too.
And you know what? If the shit doesn't hit the fan in 20 or 30 years, at least we know that we're living it, and it's not hopium. It's just like, okay, we we don't know. We don't know. I don't prognosticate. Elliot, well, you say 30 years. I don't know, but I'm not a scientist. You are. That's why I follow you. Oh.
I think 30 years is so optimistic. So, I can't imagine what the world will be like in 30 years. That is, you want to talk about optimism and hopium. You're talking about the year 2053 right now.
Giant Curve said take a break. Elliot and Jennifer are good for another hour.
Guys.
I don't think so.
Oh,
Oh my
I will
God.
toast to that, but I think I need to go eat some dinner right now. So
All
toast to
right.
all of you.
I
Hey,
just have
thanks for
coffee,
coming.
Elliot. Nothing stronger, I'm
And I
afraid.
just
That's
had
okay. At this point,
kale
I
and
just have ice.
kombucha.
So this is the Arctic Ocean right here.
Yeah.
This is where it is. So cheers to the Arctic, all of you.
Yeah, indeed. And your ice cubes are buffering the liquid in your
That's right.
glass. It's a little
That's right.
experiment.
The latent heat of whiskey. That's right.
Okay. The latent heat of kale, kombucha, and whatever else is in there. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We will
Night,
see
night.
you next week. I'm sure I'll find something. I am.
Thank you, Elliot. It's been a pleasure.
Jennifer, thank you, Sandy.